In this video of the HealthWealth Investor Toolkit video series, we're looking at the different ways of how drugs can go through the regulatory approval process in an accelerated manner. And the FDA, for this particular purpose, has many different routes or modalities that will enable the developers of new innovative drugs to take advantage of these ways to speed up the FDA approval process. And by the way, the same procedures also apply actually to medical devices, so not only drugs are concerned. In today's video, we're looking specifically at Fast Track designation. A high-level introduction to the Fast Track process is actually that it is a process which is designed to facilitate the development and to expedite the review of new drugs to treat serious conditions and to fill an unmet medical need. The purpose of the Fast Track designation is in fact to be able to supply the new medicines faster to the patients who dearly need those. And of course, not any drug can receive Fast Track status. There are certain criteria that must be met in order to be eligible for the so-called Fast Track status. And this is ultimately limited to those drugs that have an impact on serious diseases and where no current treatments actually exists. So the impact on patient quality of life or survival, functioning, etc. is a key important aspect that this new drug that wants to have Fast Track status must fulfill. And these are diseases such as AIDS, Alzheimer's disease, etc., heart failures and cancers, but even some other diseases, progress if left untreated and deteriorate the functioning and the quality of life of the patients. And these must be very positively influenced by a drug that is seeking the so-called Fast Track status. Drugs that fulfill a so-called unmet clinical need are defined as those that provide a therapy where either none exists or they provide a therapy which may be potentially much better than any available drugs on the market today already. And of course, any drug that is developed to address a disease for which there is currently no medication on the market by default meets the criterion for an unmet medical need. The FDA lay out the requirements that a Fast Track eligible drug or device must meet as the following. There must be a superior effectiveness, that is an effect on the serious outcomes or improved effect on the serious outcomes for the patient. The new medication must avoid serious side effects of any available therapy, so have to have a lower side effect profile. It must improve the diagnosis of a serious condition where early diagnosis results in improved outcome, or decreasing the clinical significant toxicity of available therapy that is common and causes oftentimes discontinuation of the treatment, as well as, of course, the ability to address emerging or anticipated public health needs. The COVID vaccines, of course, were a prime and very recent, publicly well-known example of these types of designations as well. So you may wonder, why does a manufacturer choose to ask the FDA to obtain the Fast Track designation? Well, there are certainly advantages that the manufacturers or developers of new drugs and medical devices certainly want to take advantage of. The FDA lays them out as such. This enables more frequent meetings with the FDA to discuss the drug development plan and to ensure that the appropriate clinical data is collected, which in the end is needed, of course, for the approval by the FDA. There is more frequent written communication from the FDA about such things as the design of the proposed clinical trials and the use of biomarkers. The drug is also then eligible for the accelerated approval and priority review if additional criteria are met. And very important, the so-called rolling review, which we have covered already in the Orphan Drug Investor Toolkit video as well. And very shortly, this means that the complete application does not have to be submitted in one go, which is very time consuming to actually put together. But the different sections of the new application, new drug application, or the biologics license application can be supplied in a sequential manner, allowing the company to continue working on the next chapters or sections while the FDA start reviewing basically the first parts. So the companies developing drugs must request the Fast Track designation from the FDA. FDA then must review that application within 60 days and make their decision. If the drug a company is developing meets all of the Fast Track criteria, the Fast Track designation can be awarded by the FDA. And with this, the FDA encourages frequent interactions and communication between the drug company and the agency to address any questions in a timely manner to ensure that the clinical trial protocol is producing the kinds of data the FDA need for a speedy approval of the new drug, and so that it can reach patients in the shortest time possible. And since I try to provide you global coverage, I am also often looking beyond the boundaries of the US and the jurisdiction of the FDA. So here we're looking at the approval or accelerated assessment modalities in Europe under the governance of the European Medicines Agency. And we have come previously already across the so-called PRIME scheme. And as outlined here, PRIME scheme was launched by the European Medicines Agency, EMA, to enhance the support for the development of medicines that target an unmet medical need. So the requirements here, of course, are the same in that sense as in the US. This voluntary scheme is based on enhanced interactions and early dialogue with developers of promising medicines to optimize the development plans and to speed up the evaluation of the medicines so that these can reach patients earlier. Again, same philosophy here in Europe as well as applied by the FDA. The goal is to have more frequent interactions between the developer of a promising medicine and the regulatory agency that decides on the fate of the approval of that drug. And as always, open dialogue, frequent interactions allow better planning of the clinical trials, which ultimately leads to the provision of the right type of clinical data that the regulators need in order to come to a conclusion very quickly whether this drug can actually be approved. And under this scheme, there's also a means for an accelerated assessment, as you can see here. And here specifically, the European Medicines Agency has the accelerated assessment option. This option is limited to drugs that are of major interest for public health and represent basically a therapeutic innovation. So again, that is linked to meeting an unmet clinical or medical need. And under the accelerated assessment, the timeline to review the marketing authorization application is actually reduced. As you can see here, evaluating the marketing authorization application for Europe is a centralized procedure, but the duration generally can be up to 210 days. And this time frame is always stopped if the agency has questions that the applicant basically needs to respond to. And of course, the time that is needed by the applicant to respond to questions does not count in those 210 days, and this is called a clock stop. So when the accelerated assessment procedure is valid and can be applied, those 210 days are actually reduced to 150 days. It's not a whole lot, but definitely much better than the 210 days. So you can see clearly here that under the accelerated assessment, again, the aim is that innovative medicines can reach the patients sooner. I hope that you learned something useful and valuable about the FDA Fast Track methodology and the equivalent scheme in Europe under the European Medicines Agency Accelerated Assessment. If you enjoyed this content, please consider some other videos in my HealthWealth Investor Toolkit playlist, as well as, of course, other videos on my channel, and consider leaving a like and subscribing to my channel.